Hello again, everyone. This is Jimmy. You're reading with Jimmy Ellis's Adventures in Wonderland, Chapter 5, Advice from a Caterpillar, pages 60 to 61. We left off in the last two pages where Alice took two pieces of the mushroom and was shrinking and now growing. And that was the advice from the caterpillar as he crawled off. And then we see these little stars, these little asterisks, these little things here. What do you think this is? I wrote this out in the last chapter, these few words up here. So she bit into her left hand, and we realized that when she bites her left hand, right, she shrinks. Is that right? When she takes a bite from the right hand, she shrinks, and when the left hand, she tries whatever. And so then the author, the third person narrator, puts these little things in here. What do you think those things are? Well, I would suggest they're a little pause. Because she starts out, "Come, my head's free at last," in the tone of delight, which changed into alarm when she found that her shoulders were nowhere to be found. All she could see when she looked down was an immense length of neck. She's really growing, which seemed to rise like a stalk out of the sea of green leaves that lay far below her. Remember where she was, right? She was in a forest. She was walking along the forest when she met the caterpillar. She takes a bite out of this mushroom. She managed to swallow a morsel from her left, right? From the left hand, because the right hand shrinks, the left hand grows, and she grows right through the trees. What can all this green stuff be? Said Alice. And where have my shoulders got to? And my poor hands, how is it I can't see you? She's addressing her hands. She was moving them all about as she spoke, but no result seemed to follow, except a little shaking from the distant green leaves. She's really big. When she moves her hands, the trees from the forest shake. So this Alice, who was 3 inches, is now really big. She's taller than the trees. Can you imagine a situation where you're moving your hands and you can't, you can't see them or you can't see your shoulders? Close your eyes and start moving your hands. And I know you can feel your hands if you're moving your hands, if you're moving your fingers, but suddenly you might hit a wall or you might hit a desk or you might hit an arm. It depends on where you're sitting and you won't know it because you didn't see it. That's the situation she's in. It's just not a coordinated situation. They used to do experiments where they would cut off all the senses of a student who would volunteer for this test, cut off all his sensory perceptions. You get your sense, you can see, you can hear. Those are all the senses feeding what you perceive. But they used to cut that off and suddenly you would be disorientated. You just don't know. You lose track of things. There seemed to be no chance of getting her hands up to her head, so she tried to get her head down to them, and she was delighted to find out her neck would bend easily in any direction like a serpent. So in other words, she's got this really long neck, and she could bend it and twist it around, which has never happened. And I don't know, there's some people who's got that kind of neck, and I don't have that kind of neck. Jimmy doesn't have that kind of neck. Do you have that kind of neck where you can move it all around like a serpent? Like a serpent! There's a reason the narrator put that word in there. Also, perception is reality. She just succeeded in curving it down into a graceful zigzag. You know what a zigzag is. So her neck is now a graceful zigzag. And she was going to dive among the leaves, which she found to be nothing but the tops of trees. Remember, we figured that out in the last paragraph. When a sharp hiss made her draw back in a hurry. Hiss. A large pigeon flew into her face and was beating her violently with its wings. A pigeon is beating her. "Serpent!" screamed the pigeon. "I'm not a serpent." Remember, who is it? She doesn't know who she is, but she doesn't know she's not a serpent. "I'm not," indignantly. "I'm not. Let me alone. Serpent!" says the pigeon again, but in a more subdued tone, and adding with a kind of a sob, I've tried every way, but nothing seems to suit them. What's going on here? What is that serpent saying? Who's them? Who is them? I haven't the last idea what you're talking about, said Alice. And now the pigeon starts talking. I've tried the roots of trees. I've tried banks. I've tried hedges without attending to her, but those serpents, without attending to her, without paying attention to Alice. The pigeon is just talking out loud, apparently to anybody who listened, including Alice. But those serpents, there's just no pleasing them. Pleasing them? Serpents? What the heck is going on here? Do you know anything about birds, ladies and gentlemen? Do you know anything about snakes, serpents? Do you know anything about serpents? Serpents love certain things that birds have. They love them. Alice was more and more puzzled, but she thought there was no use in saying anything more till this pigeon finished. As if it wasn't trouble enough hatching the eggs. Here we go. We're going to try to find some things out now, said the pigeon. But I must be on the lookout for serpents day and night. It's not enough that I got to hatch these eggs. Why, I haven't had a wink of sleep for 3 weeks. Serpents love to steal eggs, the eggs of birds. Everybody loves eggs. Don't you love eggs? Do you know? See, there's a note on the bottom of this page here, the importance of an egg. You see it down there on the right? The importance of an egg. Why are eggs important? Well, do you know what's in the yolk of an egg? Every vitamin known to man. Let me repeat that. You can Google it. What's in the yolk of an egg? Every vitamin known to man. That's why people love eggs. Animals love eggs. Everybody steals it. They look for eggs to steal. And this poor pigeon thinks that Alice is a serpent because of her long neck. And suddenly she's beating him and she starts bemoaning her fate. She got to hatch the eggs. And Alice says, I'm very sorry you've been annoyed, she says. Right? I'm very sorry you've been annoyed. Who was beginning to see the meaning. And just as I'd taken the highest tree in the wood, continued the pigeon, raising its voice to a shriek, I took the highest tree. And just as I was thinking I should be free of them at last, they must needs come wiggling down from the sky. Oh, serpents! She thought she was safe by being in the highest tree, and here's Alice, bigger than the tree. And Alice objects, but I'm not a serpent. I tell you, see the hyphen? See the long hyphen? She's hesitating. Why? Remember, she doesn't know who she is. Well, what are you? Said the pigeon. I can see you're trying to invent something. You're trying to make something up. I'm a little girl, said Alice rather doubtfully, as she remembered the number of changes she had gone through that day. The pigeon says, a likely story, in a tone of deepest contempt. That's sure you are. I've seen many little girls in my time, but I never one with such a neck like that. No, you're a serpent. There's no denying that. I suppose you're telling me next that you've never tasted an egg. Well, I have tasted eggs, certainly, said Alice, who was a very truthful child. Who says that? Who says that she's a truth? And she's been truthful. We haven't caught her in a lie, I don't think yet. She's a very truthful child. The third person narrator tells us that. Then Alice finally says, but little girls eat eggs quite as much as serpents do, you know. She's arguing with the serpent. What a great situation she's in. Now she's too big. She was too small before. Now she's too big, and now this one thinks she's a serpent. You're a serpent. Has anybody ever called you a serpent? This goes back to the concept of who are you? Some people think you are something other than who you are. Other people can see who you are, and other people can't. This is very important. Now, Alice in Wonderland is surrounded by creatures, But sometimes who you are is defined by creatures, right? Sometimes you act like an animal. What kind of animal? So, are you an animal? Well, human beings are in fact all animals, but we try to control ourselves because we have something different about us than other quote unquote animals. But because we're in Wonderland, these animals talk, they feel. You're going to find out soon that they cry. This pigeon is very ticked off because he interpreted Alice as being a serpent trying to steal the pigeon's eggs. This is all part of finding out who you are. This is a wonderful story about self-awareness, about gaining self-awareness, and about finding out who in fact you are. She's a little girl, she's saying, and the pigeon says, "You're just making that up." Is she? She's confused. There's some movies where people go undercover and try to be something that they're not, but we'll talk about that another time. This is Jimmy. You're reading with Jimmy. This is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Chapter 5, Advice from a Caterpillar. And now you can go back to page 60 and look at the top and you know what those little stars are, right? The caterpillar's out of the picture and she's now having additional adventures with a pigeon. There's a separation in this story. The author didn't want to give it a new chapter. He wanted it included in the advice from the caterpillar. Why? Because Alice is eating a mushroom from the left and the right hand. Keep in mind which she grows and which shrinks. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com is my email. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com is my email. Talk to you soon. We'll go back and we'll finish this chapter very soon. Thanks again for listening. Bye.